Okay, so now we are back with Sheets, and I've created a file called Heating, and in it I've put the months of the year, January through December. I've put the average temperature for each month, the daily temperature for that given year, for that month, and then I've also put the number of therms of natural gas that I use. So therms is a measure of quantity of natural gas. I use the gas to heat my house, to cook, heat my hot water, etc. So you can see during January I used a lot more than I used in July or in August. So when it's cold I use more, when it's hot I use less. But I want to see if I can model that relationship so that I can make predictions about how many therms I'll use if I know the temperature. So here's the first thing we're going to do. We want to see what this looks like, so we're going to insert a chart, which is spreadsheet's way of designating a graph. So it makes a recommendation about what type I want to create, but I don't want that type. I want a scatter plot. So I click on this tab here, Chart Types, and I scroll down until I find Scatter. Click on that. That is what I want. I want the individual points plotted. And then I click Insert. And now I have this graph here, which I can then grab and slide around. I can resize it depending on what I want to do. So I can grab this corner, I can make it a little smaller. Okay, so now I have a representation and I can see it looks like it's a linear relationship, and it looks like as the temperature goes up, the number of therms used will go down, and we'll look a little later at how I would add some labels here so this graph makes more sense. But what I also want to do is I want to put in something that shows me a line of best fit, and I also want to see the equation for that line. So here's what I do. When I've clicked into the graph, so when I click into it, I get this little arrow here. When I click that arrow, I get some options, and I'm going to choose Advanced Edit. And that's going to give me some more options here for customizing my chart. So I'm going to go down until I find, first of all, I'm going to go down to Labels, and I want the title of my horizontal label to be average temperature, and I want my left vertical axis to have a title of therms. Okay. Now you could see that I could change the font or whether they're bolded or not, all that, but I'm not going to do any of that right now. I could also change my graph so that it didn't necessarily go all the way from 0 to 80. It went instead maybe from 20 to 80, but I'm just going to leave that for now. What I really am looking for is down here, trend line. I want to select, so I have a couple options here, and it looks to me pretty linear, so I'm going to select a linear trend line. And I want the label for my trend line to be the actual equation. And then I also want to show this measure called R squared, which is a measure of how closely the points fit the line. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to click Update. And now I have my graph, and it's got these additional things in it that I like. It has my equation, y equals negative 7.046 times x plus 529.63. And it's telling me my R squared is 0.89. And the closer that is to 1, the closer and better fit you have of the points to the line. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, how did my actual number of therms compare to what my equation predicts therms? So I'm going to say predicted therms here. And I'm going to use my equation. And I'm going to use it, and I'm going to refer to the actual temperature. So my equation was negative 7.046, negative 7.046. And what I want to do is I want to multiply that number times the value in B2, which is the actual temperature. And then I also want to add plus the number from my equation, 529.63. So this is what my equation actually predicts. So what happened there? I did not put in an equal sign. So if I don't put in an equal sign, then Sheets doesn't know what it is that I'm asking for. So when I put in the equal sign, Now I get a number. Now, of course, when I drag this down, I get my predicted therms. So you can see that based on the temperature, I use fewer therms than predicted or more than predicted in January. I used, let's see, I used fewer than predicted in November and fewer than predicted in December, maybe because I was away part of the time. Who knows? But now we can see, we now can look at the relationship between the actual number of therms and the predicted therms. Now, if I could predict temperatures for next year, for example, I could make some predictions about the number of therms. Why would I want to do this? Because I might want to make a guess about the cost.